Okay, this week I'm going to talk about the idea of progress. So this one's kind of going to be like more opinion based and kind of my own anecdotal viewpoints, and so, but people can kind of chime in and stuff and everything. So I'm going to talk about progress and the idea of both physical and mental and everything. So when it comes to fitness, there's the concept of progressive overload when you're coming to lifting. So how that works is, for instance, when you're doing the good old bench press, like you start off maybe with like you're brand new to lifting and you can barely get the bar up for like the 45-pound bar for like 5 reps. Next day you're completely sore and you're completely tired and everything. Next time, like a couple days later, when you go in, maybe you can do the 45-pound bar for like 8 reps this time. So then you grind out 8. And then you do that like the following week. The following week, what you do is instead of getting 8 reps, then maybe you end up getting 12 reps. And then that second workout in that second week, what you do is then you maybe add 10 pounds, and then you're able to get maybe after getting 10 reps like the third time around, you're now getting say 8 reps with that 55 pounds on the 4th try. That's the concept of like a progressive overload, at least when it comes to like muscle building. Now you can kind of take the concept and kind of put it into like the realm of like mental health and everything. Of course, mental health is a lot more nuanced and like a lot more in depth and than I could ever talk about, and like a lot more. There are a lot more people that are more educated than me, but I'm going to put it like the concept of not necessarily progressive overload, but like progression and improving your mental health and everything. So talking about things like community, and of course sleep and like hydration and stuff, that kind of plays like an indirect role in at least with hydration stuff like that. That plays like an indirect role in mental health, because if you're dehydrated, your brain will sit there and try and trick you, like, oh hey, look, you're hungry, to eat some food, so that way you get that moisture in and everything. So indirectly in that way, in that regard, with hydration. Now sleep, you can only go so long without sleep and everything. So now I know there's I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there was a Russian study or something back when the Soviet Union was still a thing. It was done in the 70s, where they did like a sleep experiment. I think it's like a conspiracy theory thing. I just saw like a video of it once, on online or something. So I don't know if there's actually any validity to this. So people can maybe chime in as well if maybe I'm just talking out of my ass or whatever. But the study is they sleep deprived people for weeks, and then they ended up going mentally insane and everything. So the point of that is that you can only go so long with without sleep and everything. So that's tied directly into your mental health. So getting adequate sleep, you can progress it, and it helps you clear out your mind and everything. So an idea of progress is maybe your sleep is shit. You're only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep right now. You can progress to maybe getting 6 to 7, and then maybe 7 to 8 and everything, and you progress to the point where maybe you find out you work well with 8.5 hours of sleep, or you work well with only 7.5 hours of sleep. The concept of progress, finding out the whole sleeping pattern, what works for you. So now, of course, it also is dependent on your work schedule. So for instance, I've worked pretty much every single shift and everything. So when I was working overnights, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., I'd get home at pretty much 7:30, and at the time I would take my dog out for a walk, get home, I'd pass out at 8 and sleep from 8 until 4, so basically through the day. So that way I wasn't necessarily sleep deprived, so I was basically doing things ass backwards. Now working first shift, I'm one of those people, I like getting my workouts done before work, so I'd be going to bed at 6:30 p.m. to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, so that way I could go into the gym before work, and then kind of have an hour, half an hour, 45 minutes before work starts to kind of chill and okay, all right, now it's time to go to work and everything. And I would be at work for 7. and of course, right now, like I'm working like 1 to 9, so like I'm 1 to 9:30, so I get home about like 9:45 ish or so. So I'm usually like right in bed, like usually get a few things set up for the next day, and then like sit down there and do my journaling, and then I'm usually in bed about like 10:30, 10:45. To get up at 7. So that's the way you can progress with that for your mental health. Another thing, like with your emotions, is like I'm sure people remember like the physics experiment in high school, where you take like the little like tray with the balls and like they bounce back and forth and everything. Your emotions are kind of similar to that. It's like you don't want your emotions going from way out here to like way out here, bouncing back and forth. You kind of want them like maybe bounce like right here instead, so they're a lot easier to control. So now there's no way necessarily around to not having emotions or whatever. It's more about like management, and like I said, instead of like going like having those like big mood swings or whatever, be more like here, like, oh hey look, this is pissing me off. Like video games, they have that pause button, so like you in life you can sit there and you push that pause button, like, oh hey look, so and so said this and everything that pisses me off. You push the pause button and you turn inwards, and then like kind of like ask yourself, well, why does that piss me off? And then you start digging deeper, and so pushing that pause button. So that's progress in like your emotional health, which is tied to your like mental health. And so, of course, the big thing is like obviously getting professional help and everything, so you can get these tools. Now, yeah, kind of referencing back to like Smart Recovery, they have tools in their handbook. I mean, yes, it's geared towards addiction, like substance abuse recovery, like CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, like the rational emotional behavioral therapy. There's also dialectic behavioral therapy. So there's CBT, REBT, and DBT, respectively, that you can use even if you don't, if you don't or haven't suffered from substance abuse. You can use that stuff to kind of like help progress yourself mentally and emotionally and everything. And this is, of course, like I said, professional help, getting making sure like you maybe go into like a therapy session or two. If you have like an employer that like gives you like the opportunity to go in and get some free sessions, it won't hurt to like, even if like you have things under control. It's just always good to like, oh hey look, just get that check in to see where you are. Now, a couple things you can do on your own is like journaling and like meditation. There's like a bunch of guided meditations that you can find here on YouTube and everything. Start with like 5 minutes and just like of course, people tend to think like it's not a matter of just emptying your mind, not thinking. It's more about being mindful of like, oh hey look, this thought popped into my head, and just letting it pass by and everything, and then moving forward like that with like a meditation. And journaling is the same kind of concept. At the end of the day, you sit there and you journal, basically like have that like a word vomit on paper to be able to, in a sense, check in and like, okay, how did my day go and everything, where do I stand mentally and everything, and like looking backwards at the last 24 hours and like, okay, this is like how my day went and everything, like, okay, like I did this, these are the good points, these are the bad points, okay. And then looking forward, okay, what can I do for tomorrow? Like, okay, what do I got in the docket? Like, okay, I got this type of workout, I got work, I got this, and kind of getting your thoughts organized and on paper and everything, so that way when you put your journal, when you're done, you close your journal, put it aside, and you go to bed. You're not sitting there having your mind race when you're trying to go to bed and everything. So now, with me having gone through substance abuse, I'm like I'm going to always say that I made the mistake of joining AA, because like at the time I was under the impression that was the only option, and like you don't find stuff like this in the AA organization, because it's if you get to the point of progressing to the point where you don't no longer need AA, that's kind of like a asinine. That's kind of like a not contrary. Like that's not necessarily what you want. Like what AA wants you to do. It wants you to stay stuck. So it, think of like staying stuck in the same position month after month, year after year, decade after decade. The college example comes to mind, whereas you wouldn't necessarily stay in college for 40 or 50 years, that doesn't necessarily serve a purpose if you aren't going forward to try and apply that to something like people get an associate's degree. Like, okay, well, I'm a bank teller, so I go in, I maybe learn business administration, so I can move up to maybe becoming a loan officer, or like maybe working as like a maybe assistant manager or something, or maybe like I get a step further and I got to get a bachelor's, maybe an accountant. I work in like in the bank. I now become one of the bank's like regional accountants or something. Maybe I take it a step further to become get like maybe a master's in finance and everything. So now I start like working my way up the ladder. Then I get maybe a PhD in marketing or something like and so like the progress is there to like okay, this is the end goal, and like going to college for the rest of your life with no end goal doesn't really serve you or anyone anything. So it's kind of like with AA, there's no graduation, and so like you don't want to get into like something where when it comes to your mental health where you're constantly stuck in the same spot you were 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10, 20, maybe even 40 years ago. You want to sit there like, okay, look, I want to be able to like get to the point where like I'm not necessarily having to rely on like a crutch or whatever. Like, oh, if I lose this, then I'm screwed or whatever. You want to learn tools and stuff so that way like you can better yourself. Like for instance, like the being like the physics example I used with going with your emotions, going from these extremes to maybe down here. So that's like how you can kind of get implied employ the idea of progress, like or like in a sense like a progressive overload with muscle building to like progress with mental health and everything. So now, of course, I'm going to end this and to kind of reiterate that like first and foremost, get mental health, professional mental health help and everything. Even if you don't necessarily need it, do it once or twice just to kind of do that check-in and like, oh, okay, I'm good. I can like maybe progress without professional help. And if you do find that you actually do need it, so much the better. You can get things that much in order. So first and foremost, the first step into progressing, improving your mental health is, and wouldn't be surprised if it always is, in getting professional help for that.